gentlemen, and welcome back to SF Live. I'm your host, Myrna Lim. Tonight we have a very special guest. We have an election coming up in November 6th to be exact. And here in San Francisco, we have a few districts where we have to re-elect certain supervisors and or elect new supervisors. These are the odd districts. We have districts 1, 3, 5, 7, and 11. Tonight we have a candidate from District 7. He is well known in his district. He is a businessman, an educator, a government leader, and a community leader. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mr. Mike Garcia.
Well, thank
Hi,
you,
Mike.
Myrna.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's great to be here.
So how are you surviving the election, the campaign and all that? It's a tough thing to do.
I find out getting a little stronger as time goes on. I've really enjoyed meeting all the people
Right.
I've gotten to meet. You find out, about yourself. You find out how passionate you are about some of
Right.
these issues, and I guess it could go either way. But I've found that I've become closer to my wife, and
That's good.
there's a lot of stress, and that could have gone either way. And fortunately,
Exactly.
it's gone to make us closer. She's been an incredible help on the campaign.
She's campaigning with you.
No, she's not campaigning. She's our bookkeeper. She's the one that makes us dot all the I's and cross all the
Okay.
T's. And the things she has submitted to ethics, I don't think anything's been kicked back. But if anything has, it's been very few things. So we heap praise on her on a regular basis.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your background. You're a
Sure.
businessman. You're a successful businessman. You've had 3 businesses, according to your very industrious, smart campaign manager. So you had been in marketing. You had a book sort of binding business.
No.
or-
When I was in New Orleans, I started two different businesses in New
Okay.
Orleans and one here. And what I did in New Orleans was I started a band booking agency.
Okay. Oh, a band
Booking agency, yes. And I had lots of friends who were musicians, and
Okay. That
basically
sounds fun.
formed it in order to help them, find gigs, find
Right.
employment, and also it gives you an opportunity to go all over town and listen to music and
Right.
get to know that and get to know musicians who
Yeah.
are, very interesting people. And then also I started a management marketing consulting company.
Okay.
And I mostly did management consulting work, mostly for doctors and lawyers, but everything from entertainment, people in the entertainment field. I did an advertising agency. I did a motorcycle franchise,
Wow.
a rug franchise. So lots of different things. It's
Right.
great because you get to develop an anthropological eye. You go into a business, you hope you're able to
Right.
discover what their problem is as to why they're not as profitable as they hope to
Right.
be. You get to hopefully identify the problem, and you hope to come up with a solution to that problem. So
Right.
it's great training for other phases of business.
Right. Right.
And then the third business was I moved here with my wife and son in 1980 because I bought a seat on the Pacific Stock Exchange in order to trade options from my own account.
Wow.
And so I was what's called a market maker.
Right.
Market makers are individuals who set the bid and ask
Uh-huh.
on options, and so I did that for 9 years. And when I stopped doing that in 1989, I became what I am now, which is an arbitrator for FINRA.
Uh-huh.
And FINRA is the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. And I do not work for FINRA, but I do arbitration for FINRA, and they are basically the compliance branch of the SEC.
Okay. Okay. Is that part of the federal government?
Yes, it's
Okay.
yes. We had to be vetted by the federal government,
Right.
for our background, make sure that we were upstanding people because it's pretty serious work.
Right. Exactly.
And usually it involves an individual who has a dispute with his or her broker,
Right.
and whether they know it or not, they're not allowed to go directly to court. They have to arbitrate it, and it's
Right.
binding. And so, most of the disputes I've held, sat in on, I've been on a panelist on disputes that involved internal issues having
Right.
to do with a sexual harassment suit.
Well, what do you think of the recent excesses in Wall Street? Was that something that?
Absolutely, it's
Would
something,
be the
SEC,
purview
it's sort of like we've made labor the scapegoat in this
Right.
whole thing. And to me, probably the group that
Right.
has been most responsible for the problems we have, the federal government through the SEC not
Right.
having properly monitored the activities of Wall Street firms.
Exactly. Well, there was like a big whistleblower retaliation case. There was a whistleblower who, after everything was said and done, was saying about Lehman Brothers. They're saying, "Look, I've been talking to the SEC about this case, and nobody seems to be paying attention."
Right, and there are people who have identified problems. Like there was an individual that works for the SEC that identified the problems with Bernard Madoff
Right.
and some of the things he was doing, and very basically, his statement was that you do not have to have advanced calculus in order to understand that he was not operating legitimately,
Exactly.
simply because his model, the things he claimed he was doing, would require more options than were traded on every exchange in the United States and possibly the world. So,
But I could see though how that happens. How I could see how excesses would happen, and how federal regulators or even state regulators and city regulators would kind of close their eyes and ears to what's going on, because the pressure. You've sat in the appeals board. I mean, you've and the pressure coming from all different directions, from lobbyists to labor to community, to do the right thing on a person with some authority is enormous. You really have to be deeply grounded.
well,
I
but the
would think.
SEC relaxed its rules or allowed its rules to be relaxed
Right.
on things having to do with, let's just take one example. There's what's called an uptick rule.
Uh-huh.
And when I was a trader on the floor of an exchange, if we wanted to sell a stock, it had to be on an uptick. So let's just take a stock, ABC,
Right.
not the actual ABC. ABC, and they're trading at 70 and an eighth. Well, if you
Right.
want to sell it, 70 and an eighth would have had to be an uptick. But let's say the stock then goes to 70.
Right.
You're not allowed to sell it. You can put in an offer to sell at 70 and an eighth, meaning it has to uptick
Okay.
to that. And if it goes back down to 69 and 7/8, then you can lower your offer to 70, but it has to be an uptick. Well, they changed that rule, and it gave a great deal of opportunity to people who wanted to control the market to do it by flooding the market with sales. And they have
Wow.
allowed people to sell more stock than is outstanding.
Well, I mean, let's take for instance Facebook. What's going on with Facebook? I think that there is a push to lower Facebook's value per share, because they're trying to extricate certain concessions from the owner to loosen up his privacies on Facebook, I think.
Yeah, and the main thing, the market will set the price.
Right.
The market knows.
Well, he started at 38, and
Yeah,
that's
and
17.
the market set the price, and so.
But it's not, when people talk about market, I mean, it's not like it's an abstract market. I mean, there are individuals who are actually controlling what's going on.
Right, but when you say the market will, when an individual
Right.
uses the terms the market will set the price for stock, it means that all things that are out there that are knowable
Right.
are known by investors, and investors who come to know facts that cause them to sell,
Right.
and eventually they find some level where everybody's willing to buy.
Right.
And so that means the market has set the price where people agree that this might be a proper valuation
Right.
of what that stock trades at.
Right.
And so you have individuals who have said, I don't want it at that price. And then also the things that are affected are things such as the date at which people who were given stock options that
Right.
work for Facebook are able to sell,
Right.
and that puts downward pressure on the price of a stock.
Right.
And so that's the market basically setting the price of that stock.
Okay, we're getting sidetracked now,
Sure.
but that's good though, because then you have obviously the wherewithal. I mean, Wall Street right now controls. I mean, the Supreme Court just says, look, corporations are people. So there's that incredible pressure that actually it's, they calls the shot in terms of where an election is going. When you have that kind of money to put into campaigns, into elections, I mean, we know mathematically how that translates into, unfortunately, votes. But I think, as a businessman, I like your background in that the key thing right now for the country, for the state, and for the city is jobs. We need to put people to work. And so, with your background, how would you do that? How could you contribute? I know you're the legislative component of the Board of Supervisors, but through legislation, you guys have a lot to say about the budget in the Board of Supervisors. how would you use that experience to just like steer more revenues, to create more jobs, to create more opportunities? I think that's what people will be looking at in this election.
Well, what you do when you, and I somewhat consider myself an economist in that I have an MBA with a concentration in economics. And what that steers you to is to look at legislation through an economic prism.
Right.
And so let's refer to, in 2004, the voters in San Francisco passed Prop I.
Mm-hmm.
And what Prop I caused to come about was the fact that the mayor's, mayor's workforce development has to publish, and I think this year is a publishing year, and so they publish one, and
That
now
for every legislation there has to be a fiscal analysis.
well, that's economic analysis of that is part of it, but
Right.
what they also did was an economic analysis report had to be generated.
Right.
And what it does is identifies those portions of the economy that are movers of the economy. What creates more jobs?
Right.
What creates more taxes? And so some businesses might be good because they create more jobs, but
Right.
they might be bad because let's decide that it's a Walmart and they were to move here and they might create a lot of jobs,
Right.
but those jobs might not be as valuable as other jobs because a lot of the money, things that are sold through a Walmart are manufactured somewhere else. Walmart is not located here, so that a lot of that money goes back to corporate headquarters. And what it does is identify the sectors of the economy that contribute the most to building the type of economy you want in a location.
Right.
And so what they've identified are things that have to do with the quality of life in San Francisco. And usually we might think of that as being a neighborhood or something like that. But what that translates into, what are the economic movers in San Francisco? And so it might be it is absolutely tourist dollars. I've been in your studio now for close to an hour, and in that one single hour, tourists in San Francisco have spent over $1 million.
Okay.
And so, and that's every hour of every day, 24
Right.
hours a day. And so what you do is you say, what are those aspects of the quality of life in San Francisco that make San Francisco more livable for us that live here?
How about families? You're talking about families.
Yeah, and so it has to do with families.
Families have to leave. I mean, they can't maintain their status.
And the story I hear about that is that there's a bad combination here in San Francisco where the cost of living is very high because of cost of housing, and then to send your kid to have to send your child to a
and
private
they steal
school.
your money with those traffic tickets.
Yes, and so we scramble all the time to try to find other sources of revenue.
Right.
And then young families are leaving here for several reasons, one of which has to do with the quality of our schools and the fact that they can place their child in a public school in one of our neighboring counties,
Right.
Marin or Alameda or San Mateo, and pay the same or less for a house, and so that's very attractive to them, and they leave. It's also very difficult. There's very little housing available in San Francisco for people with growing families. I think that under 10% of all housing units in San Francisco have more than 3 bedrooms. So if you have any size family, if you have a boy and a girl, and the husband and the wife, and you're able to have 3 bedrooms, right away you've kind of maxed out
Right.
on what is available in San Francisco.
Right.
So there's that problem also. But the quality of life, to get back to that very quickly,
Right.
has to do with things that also make it appealing to live here as a family, and it has to do with the parks, it has to do with the museums, it has to do with the quality of our restaurants.
Right.
It certainly has to do with the beauty of our city and the weather we have here. Well, we can't
Right.
control that. You can control the beauty. And we need to do things, the way to create jobs would be to do things that bring more tourist dollars here.
Right.
And that's not the only thing we do. So we need to we need to expand Moscone Center. We're turning away some conventions because they're not large enough to accommodate all conventions. We
Right.
need to build a Warrior Arena, and we need to do it intelligently in a way that has as little impact
Right.
as possible.
Well, in your area, isn't there a big plan or big push to make some alterations? Well, actually, a major project with Park Merced.
Yes, Park Merced is pretty much in the pipeline. That's
Right.
a done deal, and so the job of a supervisor will be to.
What did they end up with Park Merced? The plan for Park Merced?
The plan is that they're going to build more units. They're going to increase the density there, but they have also done lots of things to mitigate some of the
Right.
negative impacts, such as They're going to bring a Muni line directly into that, the M line, which I would
Okay.
assume you're familiar with.
Right.
And then also they're going to have a shuttle that takes people directly to Daly City BART station.
Right.
That same that same shuttle in off hours will take
Right.
people to Westlake to shop, or to Stonestown, which is nearby. And all of the people who have been living there the longest, meaning those that have the greatest seniority, will be able to choose the apartments first. And I think net, it's a really terrific project. There are going to be some problems, but let's look at what it's going to do.
Right.
It's going to create jobs. We have carpenters who are living out of their cars, have hocked their tools. It's
Right.
going to
Oh,
create.
you know, a good friend of mine, Jim Salinas.
Sure, we know Jim.
Yeah.
I
Carpenters,
spoke
formerly.
before the carpenters. And anyway, it's going to create jobs, it's going to create necessary housing, and it's going to add to our tax base. So I
Okay.
think, in net, it's
Right.
absolutely a good project.
Now, let's talk about your district a little bit more specifically. Your district is probably, compared to other districts like District 11 or District 5 or parts of District 3, I think District 7 is a little bit more affluent.
Right, a little more
A little more
fluent
stable.
and a little more moderate. That seems
Right.
Moderation, that kind of political
Right.
moderacy goes
Right,
with
right.
affluency, and we're sort of the
Now you
inverse.
just expanded too, right? The District 7 just expanded. You incorporated.
A little bit, yeah.
Parts of
We
District
lost a little
11.
bit. We got gained
Right.
some, like parts of District 11 that we got, as you know, having run in District 11, is now we have both sides of Ocean Avenue all the way to
Right.
City College, and then we also took in a little bit of. We're not all beyond Ocean though, except at Ingleside Terraces, lower Ingleside Terraces.
Right.
And then we extended on 19th Avenue to Irving and parts of that. But the district didn't change that much. But what makes our district unique is we're
Yeah.
known denigratingly downtown as those people with lawns. And so we have a little bit of a different lifestyle in District 7. I think it was Herb Cain that said that the city, San Francisco is both a city and a county, and District 7 is the county in San Francisco. And we have a more stable population there, stable in the sense that
Oh, yeah, I've been
on
there for a long
average,
time.
well, I don't mean mentally stable, although let's hope we have that too, but I mean, on average, people have lived in their homes 22 years.
Well, how long have you been? How long have you lived?
Beyond the average. I've been in that district for 32 years,
Right.
and in the same house for 30 of those years. I live on Eucalyptus, very close to Lowell High School.
Okay.
And we have the inverse of the rest of the city in terms of home ownership. 62% of the
Right.
people in our district
Are
own their home.
homeowners.
Yeah, and so 38% then rent.
Right. Now, Sean Osborne is your district supervisor now, and he's supporting you, right?
Yes, he has
So,
endorsed
I
me.
mean, how much different are you going to be from Sean Osborne, or are you going to be different at all?
Well, I would assume that on certain votes I might be different, but I absolutely hope to continue his tradition. And the tradition I most admire is the fact that he is fiscally conservative.
Right.
And I mentioned that I was an arbitrator for FINRA, and
Right.
the typical case, someone is suing his or her broker because they were in breach of their fiduciary duty.
Right.
And Sean has always gotten the fact that as an elected official, you have a fiduciary duty. That is
Right.
not your money you're spending, and you have to be wise and careful about it
Right.
because it's limited.
Right.
And so I want to continue in his tradition. Plus, he has incredible integrity. He's a great family man.
How about Tony Hall, the former supervisor?
He was also very fiscally conservative, and
Right.
he's probably started I don't know that he started the tradition, but he
Right.
certainly also, when it came to things having to do with, being fiscally responsible, he was certainly that.
Right, right. So if when you become the supervisor for that district, what are you going to be taking on independent projects specifically for your district? Or?
Yeah, there's something specifically for the district or the city. As someone again who ran for office, that
Right.
you concern yourself with the city as a whole
Right.
as well as your district. And the main thing is that anything that's good for the city hopefully is good for your district and vice
Right.
versa. And I would say that because of my background, I'm going to concentrate on things that would help the economy, help put
Right.
people to work. But I would love the opportunity to say that I'm absolutely not asymmetrical. I care very deeply about social issues. You had
Right.
mentioned to me before we went on air that you were deeply involved in civil rights.
Right.
I was very deeply involved in Louisiana with civil rights. And there's a statement that was made by Senator Kennedy that a budget is a moral document of a society, and I adhere to those beliefs.
Right.
That we in San Francisco need to take care of those people who can't take care of themselves, but in order to do that, we need to have the money for that. We have terrific programs in San Francisco, and I want to be able to help us have a sustainable economy that can, support those things that are really worthwhile.
Right. Now we have a couple of minutes. Let's talk about your campaign.
Sure.
What have you been doing?
Well, what we've
What
been
have you
doing.
been doing lately?
Yeah, what have I been doing lately? Once in a while, I sleep for a couple hours at night. But beyond that, we have a terrific team, and what we've done is cover our district twice.
Do you knock on doors?
I'm sorry?
Oh, have you been knocking on doors?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Been
You have to knock on doors.
Yes, absolutely. Knocking on doors myself, and we have field organizers who've been doing it,
Right.
and we have knocked on every door, of identified voters, meaning those people who are likely to vote.
Right.
You don't want to knock on the door of someone that's not registered or not going to vote, and we've done that twice.
Yeah.
And we have appeared before.
Although, the legislature in Sacramento just passed this crazy law where you can register voters on the same day of the election. Now that, to me, is crazy.
I totally agree with you.
From the standpoint of campaigns, because then it's a moving target. You don't know what's going to turn up. It's like hauling cats.
Well, not only that, it seems like it opens the door for some corruption to take place.
A lot of fraud.
Yeah, a lot of fraud could take place.
You can verify them that day.
Exactly. You can verify them after it's over, and then
But
imagine.
you already lost. I mean,
exactly.
you know.
Or already won, somebody else already lost.
Well, they already stuffed the ballots, right?
Right.
So anyway, but are you enjoying it? I mean, that's to me, that is the key thing.
I really am enjoying it.
You really have to like it.
Yeah,
I did. When I ran, I did like it.
Yeah,
It
the
was
number of people you get to meet.
It's crazy.
The ideas to realize, to sit before a group of people, what you realize is I don't want to do all the talking when I'm before a group of people, because you want to hear their concerns and their issues, because you hope to represent them.
Right. Where is your headquarters?
Our headquarters is 258 West Portal. It used to be Managed Jewelry, and so people come in there. Yeah, and before, when we first cleaned it up, I wanted to be the guy to clean it up, see if there were any diamonds lying around that had been identified. But I can tell you, I didn't find any.
Did you lift the carpets?
Yes, and my wife knew the place well. She had been there many times before. I had not.
So is your wife knocking on doors with you?
No, she's, as I said, her main
That's right. You did say she did.
concentration is taking care of the books for us.
Oh, good for you. Well, okay, so phone banking, are people still doing that?
Yes, people still do that, but as you probably know,
Okay, we have 40 seconds. Now, how do people get a hold of your campaign?
they can call. The number is, Jess?
564-5133.
564-5133 is our campaign headquarters. And we would love to hear from them. They could drop by. We would love to meet everybody. We have an opportunity to meet. If I see two people waiting for a bus, I pull over and try to talk to them.
Well, you have a few days to work really, really hard.
Yeah.
Less than a month, right?
Yeah, I think we're down to 49 days. I'm sorry.
Mike Garcia, 2012.
Oh, and my website is
Well, ladies and gentlemen,
MikeGarcia2012.com.
thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Okay.